The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Unlike most poets who enjoy only posthumous fame, Robert Frost experienced fame, honor, glamour, tremendous fame, honor, glamour during his lifetime. He was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry more than once. He received the Congressional Gold Medal. He collected honorary degrees from various universities, including Oxford, Cambridge, and Princeton. His poems were widely published, anthologized, and widely prescribed in schools, colleges, and universities. The beauty of the poetry of Robert Frost, in fact, the beauty of The Road Not Taken, is that it is simultaneously simple and complex. The typical poem of Frost is on one level so simple that even a schoolboy can read it. At the same time, on another level, the poem is so complex that philosophers can debate its real meaning endlessly. Let us take a look at the title of the poem, The Road Not Taken. Frost was an American poet, but he spent some of the crucial years of his literary life in England. In England, he came in touch with the Dymock poets, one of whom was Edward Thomas. It is said that Robert Frost and Edward Thomas used to go for long walks through the woods together. And it was the character of Edward Thomas that, around 1915, inspired Robert Frost to write this poem. Edward Thomas was a poor decision maker. He could never make up his mind about what course of action to take. Whenever he made a choice, he inevitably regretted the good things that he had lost. As a result of the choice he had not made, the two choices being mutually exclusive. This poem is about a road forking and the speaker choosing one of the two roads. Please look at the title again, The Road Not Taken. The crucial word in the title is not. The title of the poem is not The Road Taken, but The Road Not Taken. It is the characteristic of not merely Edward Thomas, but of almost all human beings, to be obsessed by what is lost rather than by what is gained. The other side of the fence is always greener. When you make a choice, you inevitably get obsessed by the choice you have not made, the two choices being mutually exclusive. The title of the poem thus throws intense light on the road which is not chosen by the speaker, the road not taken. Let us read the poem stanza by stanza. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveller. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Frost used to say that a poem should begin in delight and end in wisdom. This poem certainly begins in delight. The speaker goes for a walk along a road through the wood. To diverge means to split. To diverge means to divide. Wood is a small forest. It would appear that the poet was fond of woods. There is another famous poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, in which the poet says, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. But I am getting distracted." To return to the present poem, two roads diverge. The wood is yellow. Why is the wood yellow? Because it is autumn. You have very clear-cut seasons in England: summer, winter, autumn, spring. In South India, you have only 3 seasons: hot, hotter, hottest. So the speaker stands at the fork of the road forks, and he feels sorry that he cannot travel both roads. Now you get a clue about the character of the speaker. He wants to have the cake and eat it too. It is said that a politician is a man who, when he comes to a fork in the road, travels both ways. The speaker is obviously not a politician. He spends a lot of time looking at one particular road. The road forks, he has to make a choice. He is fascinated by one particular road, and he spends a lot of time looking at the road until the road disappears in the woods. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. In the first stanza, the speaker spends a lot of time looking at one of the two roads. In the second stanza, he chooses the other road, not the road which had fascinated him. He has an explanation for that. He says that the second road is the less used road. To begin with, he is fascinated by one road, but ultimately he chooses the other road because that is the road which is less traveled. Then he corrects himself. He says that the difference between the two roads is not very significant. Look at the nuances in the thematic structure of the poem. Sometimes teachers say that this poem is about choices. This poem is about individualism. This poem is about nonconformism. But they are all simplistic readings of the poem. In fact, this was one of the poems which Frost very much liked to read in poetry readings. And this was the poem which was demanded of Frost almost at every poetry reading. And before he read the poem, he would warn the audience that it is a tricky poem, and he would warn the audience against carrying out a simplistic thematic analysis of the poem. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. The penultimate stanza amplifies on what has already been said in the previous stanza. It makes it clear that the difference between the two roads is not very significant. In fact, both roads have not been used much. Both roads are covered with leaves. They have not been trodden black. The speaker chooses one of the two roads, hoping to travel by the other road on another occasion. As I said, the speaker is a man who always wants to have his cake and eat it too. He decides to travel by one road, but desires also to travel by the other road on some other occasion. He knows that this is not something possible, because way leads on to way, road leads on to road, decision leads on to decision, choice leads on to choice, and you move further and further away from your point of origin. And he knows that it is simply impossible for him to travel by the other road on some other occasion. This is what always happens to us in life. Even seemingly unimportant choices are very significant, because, as I said, a choice leads on to a second choice and a third choice and so on, and you cannot retrace your steps in life. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. The speaker now focuses attention on a point in the distant future, when he will be narrating this story with a sigh. A sigh is a deep breath. It is usually an expression of regret. He is very sure, the speaker is very sure, that at some point in the distant future, when he relates this story of two roads diverging and he choosing one road, and the road taking him inexorably forward through the journey of life, he will be narrating it, he will be relating it with a sigh of regret. I am reminded here of what William Wordsworth says in Resolution and Independence, or The Leech Gatherer. I quote, "We poets in our youth begin in gladness, but thereof in the end come despondency and sadness," unquote. Some editors replace the word sadness with the word madness. The fact is that the days of our youth are the days of our glory. And as one grows older and older, one becomes wiser and sadder. At the closure of the poem, the speaker admits that he will be relating the story of how the two roads diverged in the wood and how he chose one of the two roads and how that seemingly insignificant choice has made a tremendous difference in his life. This poem powerfully exemplifies the Frostian dictum that a poem should begin in delight and end in wisdom. Let us now analyze the thematic structure of the poem. As I've already pointed out, Frost used to say that this was a tricky poem, and it has to be accepted that the poem has a complex thematic structure. One cannot come to categorical conclusions regarding the themes dealt with by the poem. All that one can do is to pinpoint the nodes of the thematic structure of the poem. This poem is about choices. Life is a series of choices. One has to take roads and one has to avoid roads. The poem seems to suggest that the differences between the roads chosen and not chosen are not very significant. Whatever choice you make, there is always a choice you have not made, because choices are mutually exclusive. Whenever a choice is made, certain things have to be lost because of the choices that are not made. The poem seems to suggest that seemingly insignificant choices create tremendous differences in our lives. Above all, the poem makes it clear that at the end of the day, we are all sure to sigh over our choices. A sigh is a deep breath. A sigh is an expression of regret. Thus, this poem has a complex thematic structure. Let us attempt to graph the character of the speaker in the poem. Robert Frost became a close friend of the English poet Edward Thomas, and it was the character of Edward Thomas that around 1915 inspired Robert Frost to write this poem. Edward Thomas was a poor decision maker. He always spent a lot of time to make choices. And whenever he made a choice, he regretted the benefits that he had lost as a result of the choice he had missed. The speaker accepts that life is a series of choices. The speaker accepts that choices are mutually exclusive. And the speaker is obsessed not with a choice he has made, but with a choice he has not made. Please remember that the title of the poem is not The Road Taken, but The Road Not Taken. In fact, Edward Thomas agonized over whether he should enlist or not enlist in the army during the First World War. Finally, he enlisted in the army and was killed in the Battle of Arras some 2 years after he joined the army. The character of the speaker is a very complex one. He understands that small decisions bring about big changes in our lives. He accepts that At the end of the day, we are all going to regret the decisions that we make, the choices that we make. The poem consists of 20 lines. It is organized in 4 stanzas of 5 lines each. The meter is iambic tetrameter. The rhyme scheme is A-B, A-A-B. The diction is simple. The poem has tremendous ironic possibilities. There are repeated shifts in the flow of the poem. The diverging roads form an extended metaphor. It would be unfair to give a simplistic interpretation of the poem. There is a strong undercurrent of irony throughout the poem. There is a golden liquidity. There is a natural flow in the entire poem. The poem has linear parity. The lines are rather short and more or less of the same length. It has to be pointed out that there is a perfect matching between the stylistic component of the poem and the thematic component of the poem.